Hi guys, it's Paul from Unsung Angler and welcome to another episode of Utility Flies. Today I'm going to be tying a PMD Comparadun. So when I first started tying flies, I really couldn't afford to buy any fancy hackle or anything like that. And that's when I stumbled onto the Comparadun. A simple elk hair wing, microfibet tails, and just a dub body. And this is a wonderful dry fly pattern. I've caught so many fish on this pattern. Hands down my favorite mayfly dun pattern to reproduce. So I have some modifications that I've done over the years. I know you can find a pattern, some people will call it a sparkle dun. So what I'm gonna do for this fly, instead of using microfibets for the tail, I'm gonna take about 6 or 8 fibers of tan poly yarn. With the microfibet tails I've sometimes found on your larger flies like Hendrickson's, a size 14 mayflies in that range, that the tail of the fly would, the microfibets would break the tension of the water and cause your tail of your fly to sink. So I started using poly yarn. It started out a little thicker and then I want to see how thin I can take it, and 6-8 strands keeps that, you put some floating in there and it keeps it up nice and buoyant. So let's get started. We'll start out with a standard dry fly hook, size 16 for this pattern. We are just going to use yellow 6/0 uni thread. The dubbing we'll be using is Wapsi Superfine Pale Morning Dun. And for the tail, will be Wapsi Floating Polypropylene Yarn in dark tan. We'll start by applying a base of thread to the hook. And on this fly, honestly, I don't know why. I always start the wing first, then I'll do the tail, and then dub up. We'll start off with some deer hair that I've already cut and stacked. So if any of you watched the caddisfly video, I show how you take the hair out and what way you want the hair to point. On a caddisfly, you want it to point toward the back of the hook. When we tie a Comparadun, we want it to point toward the eye, so I'll have to take my hair stacker and make sure I have that orientated in the right direction. So I'll pull my hair out. There's my tips all nice and stacked. I'll grab them with my right hand. Now I've already predetermined the size on this, and what I like to do is about a hook gap width on this. And I'll make some thicker and I'll make some thinner. Flat water, I want it to sit a little more flush in the water. More riffs, I want a little more buoyant fly, so I'll put a little more hair on that. So the hair will be the hook shank length. We're going to come just behind the eye, about 1/3. Line our hair up where we want it. Pinch the thread. Put 1 wrap, 2 wraps. Pinch your hair and gently pull down. Throw another wrap, another wrap, and another wrap. Now what I like to do at this point, I do not let go of the butt ends. And I come in from behind with my scissors and I'll cut that at an angle. Just like that. Make sure you get it all. So what I'll do is now most of my hair, all my hair should be on top of that hook. I'll throw a loose wrap onto the bend of the hook, and now I'll start wrapping my way up onto the butt sections of my deer hair. So we should have it on there fairly good. Now I'll go back to the bend of the hook, and I'll take my poly yarn. And like I said, you don't have to go, you don't need much. 6 or 8 fibers. I'll cut those, get them evened up, and tie those in. I'll come back, and what I'll do now is just cut that about a shank length. There we go. So there's our tail. Now we'll come in with our superfine dubbing. I like to put this on, especially for Comparaduns, fairly thin. And get it on the thread nice and tight when I dub it on there. I don't want to have much, I don't want it soft when I get it on there. I want it to go on fairly firm, especially. So as I wrap this up, try not to hit my camera again. I went a little overzealous with the dubbing. We're going to try to taper our body. Now where we get to where we wrapped in, it's going to get kind of thick. So one thing I learned when I started tying these, you want to get a lot of dubbing in front of that hair wing, but you also need to get some behind it. If you don't put enough, if your wing is sticking up like this, and you don't build your dubbing up behind it, and you keep it low, it causes your wing to get kind of flary. I like mine to be nice and uniform across, so you got to put. So what I'm going to do is right about there is where I thought I had enough. I'm going to put one more wrap of dubbing behind that. So now you're going to pick that hair up, your deer hair, and start wrapping in front. And you want to come down, back up, and you want to build a nice base of dubbing up in front of that wing. So I need a little tiny bit more. And again, this step, don't be afraid to put, really dub up in front of this, in front of your wing. And you want to get that dubbing on nice and tight. I've had times where you kind of put it on real thick, and as soon as the fly gets wet, just your wing just spreads right apart. So hold that hair back and wrap and get that, pack that dubbing right up in there like that. I think at this point we're pretty good. Take our whip finish, and like I always do, 2 whip finishes because I don't use head cement. 4 on the first, 3 on the second, 2, 3. Call that good. So there's 2 final things we need to do with this fly, because right now it looks kind of atrocious. So I'll turn my vise and I'll look in at it at a side, and I'll grab my wing and I'll manipulate it with my fingers. And once I get it all out, which it doesn't look so bad right now, if there's any stray hairs, I got a little tiny one down here, I'll cut that out. One I don't like right here, I'll cut that out. Stray piece of poly yarn in the back. So that's basically it. So there you have it, size 16 PMD Comparadun. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy the channel, please click subscribe. Thanks again for watching, everyone.